All right, everyone. The other day, Donald Trump decided to effectively troll the Vatican. And I give him enormous credit for having the balls, by the way, to do this, considering normal politician would say, there's a lot of Catholic voters in the United States. Maybe I shouldn't piss them off. Instead, he decided to chuckle and post a picture of himself dressed up as the Pope, actually, on Truth Social. And I was thinking, I don't know that it's going to have the same effect that it would have had when maybe like Pope John Paul had just died. Back then, a larger preponderance of Catholics were quite orthodox in their beliefs, much more religious. After the current pope, the current Catholic pope, a lot of Catholics seem to have become much more liberal in their views, and not because they're following the self-proclaimedly Marxist workings of, the former pope, but because they're like, well, I don't know, do I really have loyalty in this church because it seems like it's going in the wrong direction? But basically teaching communism, and the pope is literally professing himself to be a Marxist. If you've got conservative Catholic voters, I don't think that they're going to mind too much if you troll the Vatican at this point. I found it hilarious. Now, the people complaining about it. Who were they? Are they highly religious Catholics? No. They are liberals. They are people who say simply, as always, orange man bad. They are looking for something to complain about. And so I see people that don't have a religious goddamn bone in their body complaining about sacrilege. I see people who didn't even necessarily like the former Catholic Pope complaining about it always for socio-political reasons. I've got plenty of people, for example, here, some of you watching, are Catholics. I have not seen a single Catholic adulate the current Pope. I have not seen a single Catholic irate on Twitter or anywhere else about this particular post. It's a goddamn shit post. It's a meme. The fact is that you should be able to criticize anyone that you want. People were discussing the possibility of Trump becoming the Pope because the legacy media decided to bring up the issue. And in usual glib terms, Trump said, "Oh, well, maybe, I'd like to be Pope. That sounds good." And then post this. It is a joke. It's the same kind of joke as the invasion of Canada or something like that. Most of these are not serious suggestions. No reasonable person believes that Trump will become the Pope. No reasonable person believes that Trump would ever be offered the position of Pope. In fact, I think for legal reasons, he wouldn't even be able to take the seat even if it was physically offered to him. People have gone brain dead effectively. They're rambling endlessly and pretending to be upset because let's face it, nobody's really upset at this. Unless you've got like the really, really old Italian Orthodox Christian grandma or something like that. Very, very religious and pious, never had sex, although still has 3 kids or something like that. That's basically the only person that you're going to find that could possibly believe in papal infallibility to the point where they would be offended by this image. And by the way, hey, liberals out there, I've got a question for you. Is this not a little bit like the offensive memes of Vladimir Putin being banned thing? Except you're not banning, you're simply just castigating it, for religious reasons supposedly, which don't even exist in your case. Isn't it a little bit like the censorship in Russia, or Ukraine for that matter, that you despise so greatly? Isn't it a little bit similar? Stop being goddamn hypocrites and stop being idiots. Stop being a fucking fool. This is hilarious. It's funny. Trump casting himself off as the Pope. Somebody the other day on one of the posts, they had Grok make an image where it replaced Trump with Elon Musk, actually. That was also funny. We're having fun. We're not overthrowing the Catholic Church, even though it should be overthrown. We're simply joking around. There's no such thing as papal infallibility. The Pope is not a special individual and lives, by the way, behind 50-foot tall reinforced stone walls with a nonstop guard on them. So you're not illegally immigrating to Vatican City. I would point that out as well. Very funny, by the way, when the Pope came out and said, well, basically tear down this, he had a tear down this wall moment. And then people were posting pictures of the walls around, his papal palace. I don't think that anything beyond a reasonably sized army is going to be able to penetrate the security defenses of the Vatican. Let's put it that way. There's a reason for that. Walls actually do work. Also, I was thinking about the high versus low church movement. This kind of total reverence for a living individual, well, now dead individual, but formerly living, is part of the ritualism movement with the stained glass and the golden scepter and all the other regalia and the orbis, the cruciger orbis, I believe it's called, and so forth. It's ritualism. The original Christian religion as practiced in the United States tended to be low church movement. The church was a very humble abode where people simply went and voted their conscience quite literally. They were also used as meeting halls, and they were used as debating points, and they were used for get-togethers of various kinds. There's a difference between the ritualistic high church movement, which unfortunately eventually prevailed upon Protestant congregations mainly as well, and the low church movement. Hey, we went here, sang some songs. We have the Book of Common Prayer, which is read almost preferentially to the Bible itself. And the minister was probably also a doctor and maybe did other things. Maybe he also fixed horses or something like that, did equestrian shit. That was the original congregational system in most of the United States. Sure, there were Catholic churches, but it was mainly low church Protestants that founded the country. And they were vastly different from the high church ritualistic movements. The ritualistic movement puts its faith in an individual, usually the head of a congregation, in the Catholic case, the Pope as the head pontiff, and then their word is basically law. And this leads to problems, by the way. In low church congregations, the pastor, or whatever they called themselves, the reverend, was just seen as a member of the community. This is what Jesus taught, by the way. And by the way, didn't Jesus say something about wide is the road that leads to hell and narrow is the path that leads to heaven? Well, look at what the largest denominational religion in the world is. Which one is it? Let me ask you that question. Go study your Bibles and then get back to me. It's funny. I always hate it how I know more about Christianity than most Christians because they'll never believe a word that I say, even though I'm telling them what Jesus said in his own words, supposedly, as recorded by the apostles. It's very, very strange at times. So yeah, Donald Trump has trolled the Vatican. Liberals are outraged on behalf of actual religious Catholics, most of which are not Democrats, by the way, and probably don't have TDS. In fact, some of them, and I believe this is sacrilege too, burn candles in Donald Trump's name. I don't really like religion and ritualism. Spirituality, by the way, is fine. Having a non-denominational get-together or something, you have a picnic and you mash it up, food-wise. I believe in food diplomacy, by the way, very, very strongly. That's about all. Peace out.